Chance, goal, brilliant. Just fantastic by Nicola Barella. And he does it! And Italy are champions of Europe. Forza Italia.
Ciao ragazzi, and welcome to the review Della Madonnina here on Serie A Sit Down, World Football Index's podcast of Calcio Told Like It Is, where you can get your calcio to go. I'm Frank Crivello. Richard Carmen decided to take a vacation with his family on the day that Milan clinched the Scudetto. Are you crazy, man? I mean, leaving me to record this? Good luck with this even making it to Apple Podcasts or any of our fine channels where this is found. So if you're watching this on YouTube, this might be the only place you find us over the next week. We'll have to see what happens. But, I mean, Richard puts in so much in this that it takes 3 men to replace him. And I got 3 good ones. So, joining me, and I'm going to go in order from fourth to first. So, the host of Stoppage Time, member of the All Huey cast, Cliff Esmiol. Cliff, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Frank, for having me. It's always a pleasure to come on. You guys have one of the best intros to a show I've ever seen. I love it so much, so it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much again.
Awesome. Good to have you. Finishing third, Napoli. Oh, by the way, Cliff's second cap with us here on Serie A Sit Down. The next man, I've lost count how many caps he has. He's got to be on 6 or 7 or something like that. We've had him on so many times. He's a pleasure to have with us. Representing third place Napoli, Rafa Rispo. Ciao, Rafa.
Ciao, Frank. This is a real case of first is the worst, isn't it, for Cliff, huh?
Saving the worst for last, is that it?
How you doing, my friend? How you doing?
I've been smiling since about 12:50 Central Standard Time.
Yes, sir.
I know that
You
Alex
deserve
Dono
it.
tried, congratulating us Milanisti in advance, with about 30 minutes to go, and I just put a stop to that. I said, no. We're waiting until this thing is over. We've waited 11 years. We're not leaving anything to chance. I'm not celebrating until I hear that final whistle.
Yes. Well, allow me to congratulate you and the rest of Milan Twitter and Milan, social media, and you guys really deserve it. Look at that.
I did not start this today, just for the record. Okay. But I am finishing it. So got a little
right.
Woodford double oak neat. Ricky Buzz representing Inter, a valiant season under Simone Inzaghi. It was always, the most talented team in Italy. Certainly wasn't going to be the same without Conte, without Lukaku, without Hakimi. Hell of a team. But we'll talk about that here shortly. Ricky making his second appearance, getting his second cap with us on Serie A Sit Down. Welcome back, man.
Oh, welcome back. It's good to be back. And congratulations. Sassuolo couldn't do the job.
I think, what was it? There was a tweet that went out this week. Somebody was breaking down, I think there was a couple of Sassuolo players that are Inter fans, and there was a couple more Sassuolo players that are linked to joining Inter next season, trying to drum up the motivation for Sassuolo to be interested in that game. We knew Sampdoria weren't going to be interested at the San Siro today, that they had secured their survival for the following season. So, but it's great to be here. I see the chat is loaded. Great to have all of you guys with us. Thank you for joining us. I see Anthony here, already upset that Richard could not be part of the show. Our dear friend George Whitmer. George, we're so sorry, man. He's a devout Cagliari supporter. That is a gut punch if there ever was one for a football supporter. I felt for you, man, after the final whistle went. Fuji's and Funyuns, are those Interisti tears? Come on, man. Ricky's a good man. Ricky's a good sport. He's taking it well. Ollie Ox and free just because we have to do it. Your defense is Campione d'Italia. Your defense is terrified. All right. So just trying to go through Lisi is making sure that Richard gets a little grief here. And oh, look who's here, Richard.
There
Nice to
he
show up,
is.
Richard. Nice of you to show up for us.
So
Go back on vacation, Richard.
get back to your wife and kid. So, oh man, what an amazing season, guys. I mean, and not just because Milan won the title, but I mean, everywhere you turn, there was a twist every week. There was a twist in the European places. There was a twist in the title race. There was a twist in the relegation race. I don't think, and I will start with you, Ricky. I can't remember a season that there was something to look forward to literally every week. I couldn't look at one match week and say, well, this is one we can blow over and be done in 30 minutes.
Yeah, this season had a lot of twists and turns, a lot of question marks, well, in particular for Inter. But yeah, especially Juve's like resurgence out of nowhere, signing Vlahovic and coming up, because we honestly kind of assumed you guys might get a Europa League this season and Atalanta would secure their spot, but even they went up and down. But I think I actually want to say, out of all the teams, I'm actually very, very happy and impressed with the way Napoli was able to go about. Because you guys, Napoli basically stayed in the title race way longer than what I expected them to. Because I had Spalletti dropping off in February, but they were able to keep up until April.
Mm-hmm.
And let's take that over to you, Rafa. I don't think there was any denying the talent of Napoli, and I think that you guys were probably a little bit snake bit. Talk about the season if you've seen anything, because I know you have followed Serie A for quite a long time. But then also just kind of touch on it. You had Osimhen out for a while. I don't think, there weren't long stretches where you were able to have your first choice 11, throughout the season. And I think that caught up with Napoli, as the season wore on. But, comment a little bit about that. And then also your just reaction to what's just been a bizarre season here.
Yeah, well, it was, as we all know, it was a really good start to the season. We went eight wins in a row and then 12 unbeaten before we finally lost to Inter. 10 wins, two draws. And then basically some of the same stuff that was happening last season happened this season. December came around and the injury bug hit us pretty hard. COVID mixed with injuries, we were out a lot of players. But I think that was basically the difference between the two teams, Milan and Napoli, because they both had pretty much a similar, you had a lot of injuries come that time as well. And Milan were able to cope with it. The fact that Napoli had a lot of injuries in December and then we're losing a lot of players in January to the African Cup of Nations just didn't seem like things were gonna go well for us again from there on in. December was very bad. I think we only gained like 4 points out of 15 in December. And some might say that's where we lost the title. Some might say the loss to Milan in March was where we lost the title. And then, I feel like we were still in it up until, 4 or 5 weeks ago, where we had the lead against Roma and dropped 2 points in the 91st. And then the very next week, we couldn't hold a 2-0 lead on Empoli. Yeah. You look at those two matches and you think to yourself, going into this final weekend, if Napoli had won those two games, this would be a situation where all three teams are playing at the same time instead of us waking up at 6:30 in the morning Eastern to watch Napoli play in a meaningless match against Spezia. Yeah. So to sort of summarize where I think I'm going is that despite all the injuries, despite Osimhen breaking his face, and that's another thing I'd like to talk about later on too, is the Osimhen injury bug is really like it's not really a fitness thing. It's a, how hard and tough he plays thing. But despite all that, despite everything that we had to go through, Insigne's contract talks and how that affected him on the pitch, like I said, COVID, all of our midfielders hurt at the same time, all that stuff notwithstanding, I'm really happy that this Napoli team were able to stay in a race that they were never really supposed to be in. I mean, I don't know how many people that do, podcasts or talk on TV had Napoli outside of the top four. And, I didn't even think they'd, be in a Scudetto race. I mean, I thought they'd finish in second or third, but distant second or third to Inter, as a matter of fact. Yeah. And just the way things unfolded this year, in the manner that they happened for Napoli, I thought it was really heartbreaking. But at the same time, when you look at the overall big picture, Napoli were in a Scudetto race all season long. Yep. And you can't really ask for anything more than obviously, getting over that hump. So we have a few things to do. We have to do some stuff over the offseason. And then, we'll see what happens next year. But I'm very proud of the guys and how they handled the season for the most part. And I know it's a very controversial take to Napoli fans, but anytime you can finish over Juventus, and this is not a knock on Juventini. I have wars with them on Twitter, but anytime sure. Anytime you can finish a season over Juventus, it's been 12 seasons since we've been able to do it. And, we've done it this year. There's a lot of things, like I said, there's a lot of things to look at. Spalletti has 79 points. Gattuso had 77. It wasn't good enough for Champions League last year. Osimhen came back really strong, finished strong, won the under 23 player of the year. Ospina was second in Europe in save percentages, only second behind Magnan, in all of Europe. That's really something to talk about. The two defenses had the best defense all season. There's a lot of things to take from this and move on with and be happy about. So I'm overall pretty happy with the season and how it went.
Awesome. And then Cliff, let's kind of a strange season for Juventus. Okay. I mean, I think that it almost, and Ricky will come back to you about Inter as well. But a strange season for Juventus. Okay, I think that everybody that's tuned into us here, we harp on the culture at Juventus. We harp on the way they're playing. Allegri has said publicly, I'd rather play ugly and win 1-0 than play beautifully and lose. I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, especially at the professional level, you're in there to win games. As talk about what your fan base, because you do the Juve podcast, what's the sentiment? Is everybody itching to see things change? Is everybody itching to see a modern Juve here? Is this season, they got fourth, they're back in the Champions League, and is this a case, do you feel that based on where they're positioned, what they might have resourcefully, Ronaldo leaves, Vlahovic comes in, Chiesa gets injured. So you had all of these things working for you and going in fourth. Was this a feeling of Roma, Lazio, Fiorentina, Atalanta, if you wanted to take fourth from us and knock us out of the Champions League, this was the year to do it?
Well, you hit on a lot of things, Frank. You threw a lot of questions at me at once.
Well, you're the young guy. You're the young guy. I expect you to retain more.
So. Let me try to think. So the first thing you wanted to touch on was culture. So I guess from the first thing you want to talk about, culture-wise, I think Juve has been going in the wrong direction. They're going away from this fino alla fine mentality. They've kind of lost some of that. And I know Allegri likes to play ugly. I know it. He used to like to play ugly too, but not to this extent. I think there's part of it was the reason because he lost Chiesa. He lost some really key players. He had to adapt. But at the same time, I feel like he's regressed in his coaching. I feel like he's really just hampered this team and their ability to go forward and be offensive and actually utilize their offensive firepower, Vlahovic, obviously, and then Morata to a lesser extent had a good season statistically. But that's the first thing. I think the culture is going downhill, and I think the fan base wants to see big change in terms of how we coach, in terms of how we go about things in the transfer window, which in the winter was a good sign to see that they made those two signings of Zakaria and Vlahovic. But that's the main thing. Second question you asked was in terms of the change. Do you want to see change in terms of the modern football? Me personally, I do. I want to see this team get unleashed. I'd rather beat a team. I know this sounds wild, but like a 4-3 result or a 3-2 result, a higher scoring match compared to winning a 1-0 result. It's just more exciting for me personally. I know a lot of the younger generation likes to see more goals. I love to see good defense. I respect that, but I'm a fan of the modern game. I like to see more goals. I like to see more offensive firepower, and there's a lot of coaches right now who show that. De Zerbi from Italy, who was at Shakhtar and now is in limbo where he could end up next. He's a good offensive coach. And then Italiano, we all know how great he's been doing with Fiorentina. He's been a coach that people have been touting to maybe be the successor after this coming season or maybe the season after to take over after Allegri. I would love that. I would love that so much. I know a lot of people give me hate for that, as people love to do on Calcio Twitter and whatnot. But I think Italiano could be a good fit in the future. But the third question, UCL wise, I think this was the season to knock Juve off. They were at the bottom of the table at the beginning of the season. That was the time for people to pounce on Juve. And I think to a certain extent, they didn't completely lose their mentality because at least they made it attainable that they stayed in the UCL, which I think is commendable. But you also had to add firepower to do that. You needed to add the best goal scorer in the league. With all due respect to Immobile, you had to add Vlahovic and you had to add Zakaria to bolster this team. Without them, I don't think we make UCL. I think we probably end up sixth. I think we were very fortunate. Like sometimes you need a little bit of luck. But I think this was the season for teams to just, take Juve out. But you know what? We're not dead yet. They didn't take us out. We're still here. But yeah, that's my thoughts on this season for Juve.
Okay. And then, Ricky, let's come back to you because I know you kind of gave us a talk about the season and how crazy it was. But Inter, I think as much as it stings to come up short on the last day for you guys, new manager. And I think you have to come away winning a Coppa Italia, winning a Super Coppa, a Simone Inzaghi coming in, who I think was probably your best choice for a manager just based on what was available in the dressing room. Three-man defense, which is what Antonio Conte did, and Inzaghi puts his spin on it, and you lose Hakimi and Lukaku, but you get and Eriksen, you get Çalhanoğlu, Dumfries, and Dzeko, and Çalhanoğlu and Dumfries we're going to talk a little bit about later on in the podcast. Spoiler alert. Dzeko maybe didn't pan out to what. Clearly he's not Lukaku at this stage in his career, but maybe serviceable at best. So all things considered, you as an Interista, do you look at this season as a success? There's some Interista that'll say, well, this is a failure. We lost the Scudetto to Milan. I would look at this as, hey, we got second. We won a couple of trophies. We kept some consistency here. One game, one defeat to Milan in a derby is basically the difference between winning the Scudetto and coming in second.
Yeah, most Inter fans will say it's a failure. I'd say it's a good season or an okay season. Again, in January, we were 7 points ahead. And then literally the second Milan derby, we literally just needed to hold on, and we just gave Olivier Giroud the freedom and space to score 2 goals. And from there, everything just went downhill.
Yeah.
We went through 2 months where we only took 7 points from 7 games. In the January transfer window, we didn't do much activity. We brought in Gosens, who was injured. We brought in Philip Caicedo, who basically just sat on the bench most of the time when we loaned out Stefano Sensi. When we had Nicolai Barella not doing much, when he was going through a bad patch. It was an okay season. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Simeone Inzaghi did have big shoes to fill coming into this team. After Conte walked, we let go of Hakimi thinking he'd be the only player to go, and then we let go of Lukaku. Then the whole Christian Eriksen thing happens over the summer. We bring in Hakan Çalhanoğlu, Dzeko, and Dumfries. Dzeko started off really good, but then ever since he scored that 90th minute goal against Spezia, that's when everything kind of went downhill there too, because Inzaghi just played him every single game after that, even when he wasn't good, when the partnership with Lautaro wasn't working. And as well as like other areas like Stefano De Vrij being very shaky at times. It's kind of cost us this season, but I'd say it's an okay season. We did pick
Okay.
up 3 trophies.
Yep. Yep. And I mean, I'll speak for Milan. I mean, yeah, I've been arguing all season long that Milan might be the fifth most talented team in this league. When you look at it on paper, I think all three of your teams on talent on paper are more talented than Milan. And I got into an argument with a couple of people on Twitter. I threw Atalanta into that mix, and I said I would want Malinowski, I would want Zapata, I would want Muriel, I would want those guys. I would want Pacina and Zappacosta pumping in crosses, even though we have Teo. So I think it speaks to the culture at Milan. It speaks to what Stefano Pioli's been able to do, and it got regurgitated a lot on the broadcast today too. I mean, the veteran presence of players like Zlatan and Kjaer and guys like that can lead the way, but making some savvy decisions, replacing a Gigio Donnarumma with a Mike Maignan, and saving a lot of money in the process and coming up with a ton of clean sheets. Finding a way to make it work. Having a Kalulu Tomori partnership, which at center back, which is basically going to show their captain Alessio Romagnoli the door. After this season, having some players come up, and it's the whole is greater than the sum of the parts by far. And I think that's what led to Milan winning this title. They played a team game. They played a style under Pioli, that was effective. And I thought down the stretch of the season, they played extremely well. When they drew Bologna and there was a lot of panic, I was one of the few that didn't panic. And Lisi and some of the Milan guys in the chat hopefully will come to my, will back me on that. I said, when we did that podcast, I said, any other day, Milan win that game 3 or 4-0. Look at the statistics. Look at the chances they created. They just didn't score. Okay, they're fine if they keep playing this way. To be able to come up with, to deal with adversity and to come up with a response to that adversity, I think was a big thing for Milan. Didn't hurt that they got knocked out of Europe after the group stage. Which loosened the fixture congestion for them, and allowed them to focus on one thing, even though they did get all the way to the semifinals of the Copa. So there's something to be said about that, because let's face it, for the second straight season, the Serie A winner was knocked out of the Champions League at the group stage. They didn't even have to go and play in the Europa League. So especially when you're looking at the last couple of years with the pandemic, with how fixtures have just gotten piled up one on top of the other, having that break that your contenders had to still deal with did mean something in the end. I think under normal conditions, I don't think it matters as much. But when you're talking about, and we're talking especially the Azzurri, many of whom were playing every 3 days for about 8 or 9 months straight. Look at the slump in form that Della had for Inter, for a chunk of the season. I mean, you couldn't tell me he wasn't exhausted, and he picked up and played well over the last few weeks. But there was a stretch there over 6 or 7 games for Inter where you would look at him and you'd say, this is just not the same guy. Those things happen. So now a summer for everybody to break, a World Cup break, I think that's going to make things a little bit interesting from a fixture standpoint and from those dynamics. But Pioli was outstanding in his management of the team. I'm happy to have started Pioli Island with Michael Lisi and Sabrina Belmonte. I think back when the Pioli out campaign, we were the only 3 that said, no, this is a good hire. So that's, this is good. We're done retreading former players and trying to force them as managers. So, and I think it also helps that if you've got a back room and if you've got a ownership that is doing their bid in getting things right, I think that does resonate down to the dressing room. It can't, how does it not? if you've got ownership that is cleaning things up, getting the team a little bit more financially sound, and now to a point where they're trying to sell it. I mean, they've made it attractive to sell now. I think that says something. I think that does trickle down to the team and to the mood and to the confidence. And because if you have some ownership uncertainties, now you got players wondering when they're going to get their next paycheck, or where they probably need to play their football next, because maybe the next ownership that comes in isn't going to be able to afford what the previous owners did, among other things. So just a lot to be positive. Yes, Michael, Pioli Island did get crowded real fast. So there it is. Yes. So, but no, I mean, just obviously it's an extremely proud day. It's been 11 years. And I think for the fans, just what we went through, the so-called banter era, Berlusconi and Galliani, just trying to patch it together for years, and then still coming out and telling us that they're still the world's most successful club, and trying to treat us as if we're idiots and things like that. I mean, they're always going to have a special place in our history, but the way their reign ended just didn't end well. Then the Chinese group came in and spent irresponsibly and defaulted, and then Elliott has flipped the house, so to speak, and has made it attractive for potential investors now, whether it's Redbird or InvestCorp, or who knows who's going to buy this club at this point. But on the pitch, just closed it out extremely well. I mean, I think it was 16 games unbeaten to finish the season. Was it's fun to have a team like that to support, and I support them through everything. But to be sitting here winning a Scudetto, it's surreal. I can promise you that. So that's the top four. Just kind of a recap of all of that. Let's jump into the relegation side of things, guys. And let's start with Cliff on this. Okay, Cagliari goes down today, 0-0 draw with Salernitana. Or not Salernitana, excuse me, Venezia. Salernitana lose 4-0 to Udinese. I have never seen a 4-0 defeat celebrated so crazily in my life. You know what that reminded me of? That I have perfect comparison. The movie Dodgeball. Okay, when Average Joe's has to go play the Girl Scouts and they get their asses whipped, and then they find out that one of the girls is taking like a horse steroid or some shit like that, and then they're disqualified, and Average Joe's gets to go to Las Vegas. That's exactly what that was. You just got your ass kicked, but you get to go anyway. So, what I want to ask you guys, think of it from your club's perspective, and let's talk about the relegated teams, and then we'll praise Davide Nicola for making another great escape. But Cliff, Cagliari, Genoa, Venezia. There's some pretty good players on those teams that are going down. Anybody from those three teams that you've seen that you would say, hey, I would not mind seeing this guy come into Juve?
First of all, thank God Cagliari got relegated. That club needed to get relegated. I'm sorry to my Southern Italians, but they needed to get relegated. But on a serious note, some of the players that really struck my eye, obviously Rovella, who's on loan at Genoa right now, wonderful player, has had a little bit of injury issues the last season, but he's a great midfielder. From other players, I've seen Portanova from Genoa, as well as Cambiaso, some really, really talented players. I love Cambiaso as a left back. And I don't think Juve will get him, but I would love him so much. And then probably on Salernitana, well, not Salernitana, Venezia. Venezia, people don't realize Jonsson, one of their left wingers, phenomenal young talent. Nobody talks about him. He scored a great goal a couple weeks ago, cutting in and taking a great curling finish to the wide right post. So there's a lot of good talent on these teams. You just have to, I think now's the time to pick these players off these teams and get a good value buy at this point. So let's hope that maybe Napoli I hope Napoli don't get Cambiaso, because then that's going to be disgusting. He's going to be so good on that team. Portanova could maybe get a move to like a mid-table side. I don't know. I think those players could fit on a lot of teams. But yes, very happy Cagliari's down. Very sad Venezia's down because it just got a Venezia kit. And Genoa, I'm kind of like indifferent because they're like Juve's feeder club. So, I mean, I don't really care. But
I'm going to miss the kits. I'm going to miss the PR and the marketing and all that goes with it.
Yeah.
I truly am. Rafa, who appeals to you out of those three teams?
I gotta say, Cagliari being relegated appeals to me a lot because there's a lot of great talent on there. Cragno is definitely not staying. He's a Serie A keeper.
Yep.
You got guys like Cepitelli and Lovato on that team, and who knows what's going to happen. Nathan Nandez is on that team. A lot of really good Zappa, a lot of good young Italians as well. I can see like guys like João Pedro staying. I mean, he's been there for 8 years. He's the captain. Maybe he can stay and help get them back up or something like that. But I'd like to raid Cagliari's, bench there. But Genoa being relegated also was like as Cliff said, something that needed to happen. These two teams for the last couple of years have just really been teetering on the edge of staying or going. I really like the Mexican defender. His name has escaped me now as well. He's on Genoa. Vasquez. Yeah, I like him a lot. I think he's got a lot of a lot of talent. Young, rated really highly among the Mexican camp. I'd like to take him off their hands. And then with Venezia, I mean, man, what a train wreck that was. And I don't necessarily hate on them. I like the fact that CBS did a lot of good, cool, like centerpieces on them. Very beautiful. Getting to the stadium on a gondola and the fans. It was nice to see a team that has been gone for 20 years. We're going to see that again next year with Cremonese and possibly Pisa or Monza.
Yeah.
Lecce's back to Southern team. So it's gonna be really cool to see who goes where from those teams. I do want to touch on Genoa really quick though. They were just bought out and they go down. I think this might be something they really needed to sort of hit the reset button. The last time they came to Serie A was with us in 2007 in that infamous game at the Marassi where we drew 0-0, and both of our fans got to celebrate Serie A. That was the year Juventus won Serie B, and all three of us came back together. And I usually use that as a pro De Laurentiis like conversation where look at teams like Genoa and Fiorentina up until this past season, where they're like teetering on the edge of relegation or what's the word I'm looking for? Irrelevancy. And Napoli have done so well to keep themselves in the hunt every single year, 13 straight, European qualifications, stuff like that. And teams like Genoa that just can't really get over the edge and they got bought out by, I think it was 777 group. So hopefully they can help get them back up to Serie A the way that, I don't like to see teams relegated that have been there for so long also because, it just kind of hurts. It hurts the game a little bit. But I am excited to see the fresh faces of Lecce, Cremonese, and either Monza or Pisa. So that's going to be a lot of fun to see as well.
Ricky, anybody? You've dipped into the Cagliari well before to get Nicola Bonella. You've dipped into the Genoa. You got Radu as your backup goalkeeper. Who appeals to you over there?
Nandez.
Anyone that distracts you from Bremer.
Well, Nandez. That was one player I wanted at the beginning of the season. Yeah. Was Nandez to come into midfield, but he's the only player really. And it is a bit sad to see Venezia go because I did like their apparel and the way they would present it on social media.
Okay. I've spoken a lot about Manolo Portanova on this podcast. But I don't know if he's ready to make a jump to a top 4 team. I believe that there is a criminal accusation against him for rape.
Whoa.
That I don't know if that ever got solved. I think we had someone tell me that he'll know his fate in the summer, and that he actually has been under house arrest for a while. So, but I'm someone that pays far more attention to what's going on the pitch than off of it. So I was like, yeah, Manolo Portanova's not going to have any trouble finding work. And I said, well, that's if he's not going that's if he doesn't go to prison. So
that's amazing. That's
right.
News to me, actually.
So I think there's if you Google "curious case of Manolo Portanova," somebody has an article on it, and then there's also some details about how he's been under house arrest since I think June of last year. So yeah, stuff I didn't know either. That's been kept kind of quiet, but I've always liked Razvan Marin. As a dead ball specialist kind of guy. I know that he was actually linked to Milan last summer, very briefly. Someone that you can get at a bargain, coming out of Cagliari. Nandes is another guy that I would have some interest in. On the Venezia side, I don't know if there's really anybody that I thought Aramu had a nice run for them this season. I think that
How about Henri?
Henri's decent. Yeah. But I certainly don't want any of the the defensive side of things. Don't really want much of that midfield either, as much as I want success for American players like Busio and Tessman. I don't think they're the quality that could play on any of our sides. And then the other guy, Ampadu, had some good games. I played really well today against Cagliari. Probably a big reason why Cagliari are going down. But at the same time can be extremely reckless. So a guy that you would take on with some risk, a guy that never took on. So flipping it back, Ricky, I mean, Davide Nicola, is this escape with Salernitana more impressive, or is it what he did at Crotone a few seasons ago? Ricky.
Can you repeat the question?
So Davide Nicola has dragged another team out of the depths of relegation this time with Salernitana. He did it a few seasons ago with Crotone, made a great escape from 20th to surviving on the last day. Which did you find? I mean, Richard was so impressed with the Crotone escape that he went and bought a Diego Falcinelli Crotone jersey. But was that more impressive, or what he did at Salernitana this season more impressive?
What he did this season with Salernitana.
Okay.
Yeah, Salernitana had so much going against them going into 2022. I mean, they and it's funny because I was thinking about saying it on this show, but I heard it on CBS as I was, thinking about it. They had no owner come the end of the season. They were without an ownership. Lazio and Lotito had to sell them. They end up selling to a Neapolitan millionaire, I guess, and he went out and acquired Sabatini, the ex-Roma director. They bought 11 players at the transfer window in about 20 days. And I remember this happening. Oh my goodness. They got Verdi. They got, this guy, that guy. They're bringing in these players that are really going to make a difference to the squad. And, it took a little while for them to get together, but yeah, I mean, very similarly to the Crotone situation, Salernitana came back and did their thing. And then I realized, oh wow, it's Davide Nicola, and he did it again. And, I think that, I would agree with you guys here that this is definitely more of an impressive feat. There was no hope for Salernitana at all. And even today, it was like, they get saved, but, it's just like, pick your worst. Like, what, like, it could have really been one goal for Cagliari and they're up, and we're talking about them staying, and we're not reading their closet. You know what I'm saying? But
Salernitana to go down.
When you can't score against the worst defense in Serie A that hasn't had a clean sheet since November, then you deserve to go down. But at the same time, when you lose 4-0 at home, when it counts, you also deserve to go down, but you stay up on a technicality, which is fine. I like that there's another Campania team. I was kind of hoping Benevento would make it, but they couldn't. They couldn't hold on against Pisa. To have three teams, for the first time ever from Campania in Serie A, that would have been pretty cool. But I just, to me, with a full season with this new ownership and possible, Sabatini as a scout, there's actually hope. Unlike I think with Crotone, that Salernitana might do a little better next season overall and finish maybe between 12 and 16 instead of fighting relegation. So we'll see what happens.
There's
As
some
long-
pieces.
As long as their best player on their team, they're not relying on a 70-year-old Ribery, I think they'll be fine.
For sure. Yeah.
But I mean, Simone Verdi came on for them and was and served them extremely well. Was a great impact. I agree, and I agree that this was definitely more impressive, and that's saying a lot because I remember that Crotone escaped and couldn't believe they got out of there.
Sure.
Cliff, I'm sure you're making this unanimous, right?
Oh yeah. I think Salernitana was by far the more impressive one, just because of the quality of this team. Like, besides Ribery and Verdi, I could not name another player on this team. It was so scarce of talent, and the fact that, like Rafa said, the ownership situation was up in the air. Just really, really discombobulated club that kind of escaped by the skin of their teeth, and all credit goes to the manager for getting them out of this. All credit.
Sure.
And I mean, I know they lost today, but the last loss was to Roma on April 10th.
Yeah.
Before that, that's got to count for something, even though today they bid it pretty hard. They bid it to a really impressive Udinese team. Let's be fair. Udinese have been insanely impressive over the last few months. So getting good results.
Yeah, I like that. I like that Udinese team. I like how they're set up. I mean, they aggravated a lot of people down the stretch. Ask Fiorentina.
Mm-hmm.
One of the results for Fiorentina that almost knocked them out of Europe. They finished 7th in all of this. So let's move on and let's hand out some awards, shall we?
Let's go.
Yes, sir.
All right. We are going to start with the Serie A sit-down crap on a cracker 11. Now, you guys did not participate in this. This is something that I just put together. Our crap on a cracker, it's a flop 11, but I mean, you had to really have been crap, and you had to have played a lot of games. You couldn't have just, transferred over and just never saw pitch time and then be considered a flop. You had to prove you sucked.
Frank, we better see Alexandro and Rabiot on this list. We better see those two players.
Okay, so there were some positions that I picked relative to expectations. And midfield was not in there. So and actually left back was not in there. So Alexandro and Adrian Rabiot were spared. Actually, all Juve players were spared. Federico Bernardeschi has made this team a few times, just so you know.
Okay. Makes you feel a little bit better.
Yeah, goalkeeper is a relative to expectation failure. Juan Musso of Atalanta makes this list on crap on a cracker. That's that. And I went with a back four. Gabriele Zappa of Cagliari is our right back. Maya Yoshida of Sampdoria is one of our center backs. I mean, this is a guy that just should stop playing. He's old. He's past it. I mean, I think the best strikers in this league just had their way with him all season long. And then you have to have a Venezia defender, as Rafa alluded to, worst defense in Serie A. Matteo is in this list, to be the other center back. Nicola Muru rounds it out at left back for us for Sampdoria. He was just that much worse than Alexandro, Cliff. So,
I don't know how, but okay.
So that is our back four. We did a midfield three. Sofian Kien of Venezia gets into this team. Just started having problems with fouling and discipline. Had some games at the beginning of the season where he actually looked halfway promising, but man, just terrible down the stretch. A former Juve man does make this team. Stefano Sturaro of Genoa gets in there in the midfield. And Filippo Bandinelli rounds it out, a midfielder for Empoli who just ran around and fouled people pretty much all season. So So now the front three is all relative to expectations. You got to scapegoat somebody in that Cagliari attack, and I scapegoated Pavoletti in the striker position. I couldn't quite put Joao Pedro in there. 13 goals and 4 assists for Joao Pedro this year. I mean, that's good enough to keep you off of this team. But Pavoletti, every time I watched Cagliari play, he was useless. So he's the striker, and then he is flanked by Emmanuel Giassi of Spezia. He took a downturn this season. Thought very, very good last year. This year really struggled. 6 goals, no assists, and played a bunch of games. And then the other guy I'm going to throw in there is Riccardo Orsolini of Bologna. As far as relative to expectations, very, very low in terms of creating chances this season. A Bologna team that when you look at guys like Soriano, Orsolini, Barro, Arnautovic, how did they play this season and only score 44 goals? That's an attack that should be. And then you've got guys like Svanberg. You got Hickey, who had a nice season, all things considered. My jaw dropped when I looked at Bologna at the end of the season. I said, really? That squad only scored 44 goals in this league where we've got some really terrible defenses? So that's my crap on a cracker. I'll give you guys a chance to, Cliff, you said Rabiot and Alexandro. Rafa, give me a name or two that you thought should have been on this list.
Honestly, I think you're good with it. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody that just didn't impress me.
Medet. Put Medet in your list.
Yes, I'd like to. I don't know if he played as many games. You could. Okay, I'm gonna go the Napoli route. I guess it would be Medet, or I think, to be honest with you, you want me to hot take this right now?
Yeah.
As far as expectation goes, I think Piotr Zielinski goes on that list, man.
Really?
At least, yes. He was not. I know Cliff's mouth is jaws down to the floor, but when
I was not expecting that.
When you look at last season to this season, I'm going Zielinski because 10 goals, 10 assists to what he did this season was he just scored his first goal in 2022 today, and it was not a good season for him. Now, whether it's COVID, he had COVID. I think his lungs were bothering him after he sat out a couple of games after he was out for COVID. When he returned, he sat out again. Something's wrong with him. But I mean, when I think of other players on Napoli that didn't perform, Politano and Lozano didn't do that great on the right either. But to be fair, neither did Lorenzo Insigne. He had an off season as well when it comes to, how they played last season. But if I'm going to put one player that played enough to warrant an appearance or even a honorable mention on the crap on a cracker, it would be Zielinski, hands down. Medet for me didn't play enough, but if Medet doesn't make the mistake that Radu ended up making in the same weekend, Napoli have a little bit more of a fight in this, and it was just he was not good. But yeah, Zielinski for me, he wasn't the Zielinski that we know, and I don't know. Okay, again, I don't know if that has to do with the COVID or just something's up. I don't know.
Yeah, I was surprised a little bit. Now that I think about it, surprised a little bit of the drop off. Certainly, shined in the season previous, and just not a name that you called on a lot. In terms of production for Napoli, in terms of playmaking and things like that. Ricky, you got a name or two that you thought should have made this team?
I was gonna say Radu. Radu, De Vrij, Gagliardini.
For the Bologna game, right? So
yeah, Gagliardini, Vidal, he's been very awful. Alexis Sanchez.
Okay.
The times he's come on, he hasn't he wasn't what he was last year when he came off the bench.
All good shouts, guys. All good shouts. Let's move on. We are moving on to the Serie A sit-down awards for the 2021-2022 season. Let's get on with we will start with the team, actually, that we'll put together, and we will start with the goalkeeper of the season. So here's what we did. We had our esteemed panel here. I put together a questionnaire. and I had them rank at each position, manager, goal, player of the season, all that other stuff. And then we did a point system. So if we had 7 players that I wanted you to name, your top guy got 7 points all the way on down. So that's how we ended up doing it. So we're going to segue into our Serie A sit-down team of the season by starting out with our goalkeeper of the season. And this is not a surprise. It's unanimous. Mike Maignan of Milan, goalkeeper of the season. I mean, clean sheet after clean sheet after clean sheet. A breath of fresh air for Milan supporters to see the distribution be far better than what they had under Gianluigi Donnarumma. I can speak all the superlatives about him here, but I'm going to let you guys, give you guys a chance to speak on our goalkeeper of the season. Ricky, starting with you, Mike Maignan.
Yeah, I thought he was a good replacement for Donnarumma, given the whole drama, given the fact he got Ligue 1's best keeper who won them the league, and he's coming into this side. He did pretty good, and yeah, there were some games he was pulling off just save after save after save. I'm like, nah, this can't be real.
Rafa, Mike Maignan, goalkeeper of the season.
Easily, hands down, goalkeeper of the season. David Ospina gave him a run for his money, I think, and it was neck and neck. But I had to pick Maignan, trying to keep bias aside, and just it's obvious. I mean, he made Milan so much better this season. There was a lot of things that made Milan better, but Maignan contributed a lot to that, and 17 clean sheets, and there's no denying that. Highest save percentage in Europe, like I mentioned earlier. There's nothing else to debate, really. I mean, guy was the best replacement possible for Donnarumma, and he's a champion now, twice, 2 years in a row.
Yep. Cliff.
Not much needs to be added to this. What these two amazing panelists said, I would keep it simple in saying spectacular transfer of the season for me. For any league, I think transfer of the season.
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't do a transfer of the season, but if we did, that would be an easy one to pick, no doubt about it. Okay, so Mike Maignan leads our team as goalkeeper of the season. He is the goalkeeper in our team of the season. We always pick a formation. Well, we want it to be functional, and then we always pick it based on the champion's most used formation, where in this case under Pioli, it was a 4-2-3-1. Let's start at the right back position, and the right back in our Serie A sit-down team of the season is Denzel Dumfries of Inter, edging out Davide Calabria and Giovanni Di Lorenzo. Ricky, Denzel Dumfries, as signings go. I mean, we talk about Maignan, but Dumfries was pretty damn good for the Nerazzurri, wasn't he?
Yep, and he had big shoes to fill replacing Ashraf Hakimi. He was one player I wanted during the Euros. I had tweeted, I was like, he'd be a good signing right back, and we ended up going for him. He's done pretty good so far, especially adopting to Inzaghi's right wing back position, because usually I think he plays fullback for Netherlands and for PSV. But he did pretty good. Although I would argue I think on mine, I think I had Darmian in front of him as being way better this season than him.
Yeah, Darmian came up with 5 points in our tally. It was Dumfries 15, Calabria 13, Di Lorenzo 12. And interestingly enough, Quadrado came after that at 7. So then after that, there was a wide range of opinions about who filled out, our top 5 right backs in the league. Singo got some points. Darmian got some points. Faraoni, Karsdorp, Odriozola, plenty of players there. So Denzel Dumfries playing right back. Let's go to the center back positions. This one, we had one runaway. It's everybody's defender of the season, Bremer from Torino. He's in. That was a pretty clear-cut one from just about everybody on the panel. The second choice was really close. There were 3 players in contention for it based on the point total. The player that edged it out is Fikayo Tomori of Milan, 25 points. Koulibaly and Skriniar each on 23. So that shows you how close it was. Cliff, did the five of us get this right with Tomori getting just ahead of Koulibaly and Skriniar?
It's really tough to say because all of them had very good seasons, but I guess
Yeah.
what really determined it was kind of the expectations. Everybody knows Skriniar and Koulibaly are two of the best center backs in the league. Tomori just kind of came on and just destroyed. First half of the season was phenomenal. Slowed down a little bit second half in some games, but was still overall very consistent, very very done well at center back compared to the other center backs in the league. So I think people got it right, and he's also on the winning Scudetto side for this season.
Rafa Koulibaly had an excellent season for Napoli. Tomori got the edge among the five of us just by a couple of points. I mean, Koulibaly and Skriniar will be on this team's substitutes bench. That's not a bad pairing to have to turn to. Thoughts on Tomori getting in just barely over those other two?
I don't have a problem with it at all. As a matter of fact, looking at my rankings, I kind of fudged Tomori and Palomino. I was supposed to put Tomori in the third position, Palomino down in 4. I did have Koulibaly as number 1 and Bremer as 2. You might want to. I might say that it is a little bit of a homer pick for Koulibaly. I highly regard him as one of the best center backs, not only in the league but in the world. So I do think that I had some sort of a reason to put him at 1 for that reason.
Okay.
He did miss time injured and with the African Cup of Nations, but part of one of the best defenses in the league along with Milan. And yeah, like I said again, Tomori for me should have been at 3, not 4. So I apologize about that, but
no, that's okay.
Doesn't matter. He got there anyway. So phenomenal player. 18 months in the league. He already speaks fluent Italian and worked hard trying to learn and adapted to the culture really well. And he's very, versatile. He's a very good player, and he was very instrumental in this Milan defense. So bravo to Tomori. I'm very happy that he made the team.
All right. Left back, let's not waste our time on this. It was Teo Hernandez.
Hands down.
By a mile. I'll talk about him. And on the broadcast on Paramount Plus, that made the argument that he might be the best left back in the world. And I would not get into a fight with anybody that thought that way right now, the way he's playing. I mean, if you have a legitimate goal scoring threat from the left back position, you have something. I think what's underrated with him, though, is that he became a better defender over the course of the season. And maybe some of that might be because of the support he has behind him, and then he has the support that he has in midfield. But he looked more believable to me as a defender this season than he has in previous seasons from the Milan games that I've watched. That's an element that goes underrated. You certainly look at his attacking qualities and what he offers there. The goal that he scored, we'll talk about that here shortly. I don't want to give too much away, but just really, really dynamic. He ended up coming away with, I think, 20 points, 25 points. So he was unanimous. And then after that, it was Biraghi and Mario Rui tied on 6. So just to give you some perspective of how that wasn't even close. So Teo. So our back 4 is Denzel Dumfries, Fikayo Tomori, Bremer, and Teo Hernandez. Two-man holding midfield. We had a pretty wide range of opinions as I was starting to add this up, but then at the end, 2 players run away with the positions. And that was a little bit of a surprise to me because there's another player that I'll talk about that I thought maybe deserved a little bit more run. But our defensive midfielders, our holding midfielders in this 4-2-3-1 is Sandro Tonali of Milan and Marcelo Brozovic of Inter. Ricky, let's talk about Brozovic. Just glue is an understatement. when you talk about him in that inter midfield. When you consider the players that play to the sides of him, the wing backs that are doing a lot, and the role that he had in protecting the back three, but also being able to be dynamic enough to be a threat going forward too.
Yeah, he's very instrumental for Inter, and that's one key position I would say we need to look for in the summer transfer window. But yeah, you could see too this season when we haven't had him, there's a massive difference, especially with the way Barella had been playing. Without Brozovic there, there's a even bigger hole and a massive difference without him, and he's very crucial. Tonali's stepped up the past few weeks, but that's one player in particular I would have loved to have seen at Inter.
Yeah.
And also too, during the second leg of the Coppa Italia against Milan, he was, I don't want to say he was instrumental, but there was a big difference when he was off the pitch for you guys, whenever he was subbed off.
Cliff, Tonali, Brozovic, that's our double pivot in front of the back four.
I mean, what else do I need to say? These two are by far the best holding midfielders as our friend runs away. I think he doesn't want to hear all the good things I have to say about Tonali. That's probably it. I think just Tonali has just been so phenomenal this year. But he said the right word, instrumental. Both of these players were so instrumental for their clubs to lead them to where they are in the table. Tonali just orchestrating everything in their midfield, as well as Brozovic in Inter's midfield. Just both phenomenal talents, by far the best CDMs in the league.
Rafa, did Fabian Ruiz fly under the radar a little too much here? Was Tonali's and Brozovic's performances so much on the forefront that Fabian's just a victim of kind of getting lost in the shuffle? Because he was excellent this season.
I want to say it was that. Tonali deserves 100% to be there. So does Brozovic, and I 100% overlooked Brozovic myself. He didn't even make my list, and that's insane to me. But
that's okay. You were jamming in Lobotka and Anguissa. I've got your list right here.
But here's the thing: is that the three holding mids that compiled the double pivots for Napoli. When one went down, the other stepped up so much that I had to put those three on as 2, 3, and 4 underneath Tonali. It's clear Tonali and his turnaround from last season was just incredible. It's a different player, just really, really turned it up for Milan. One of the reasons I think Milan won the Scudetto this season is Tonali's, picking up slack where what's his name left a little bit to be desired. He's leaving for Kessie. Yeah.
Yep.
And but yeah, Fabian's season, listen, he's a natural attacking mid, and he was asked to be put in this role by Gattuso when Gattuso came in, and he adapted so well to it over the years. It didn't take overnight. It was a lot of people frustrated with Fabian. But he adapted so well to it that he's just shown this year in that position. And I think if not for Tonali and Brozovic, Fabian gets the nod for sure. Definitely sits on the bench. But Lobotka had such a great season after being really not rated by Gattuso last year at all. If Gattuso were on this team, Lobotka wouldn't be playing, and he was such a revelation for Napoli. And then Anguissa, we talked about, signing of the season in any league being Magnan to Milan. I think number two is Anguissa to Napoli. This guy came in Serie A and just adapted like that to Serie A, like as if he was playing for 10 years with this league. First match against Juventus, and he was our beast of the match on the Raf and Raf rant. We were very pleasantly surprised with him, so much so that we activated the 15 million deal clause from Fulham, which is an absolute steal. It's a steal, 15 million for Anguissa. So yeah, Napoli's midfield for me was, if collectively, I think make a midfield of the season. But there's no denying what Tonali and what Brozovic did for both of those teams too. So I think Brozovic had one of the seasons of his career, to be honest with you. And I can't believe he flew under my radar. I was just so gung ho on this Napoli midfield that I was blinded by it. So, but good on them. Good on them.
Agreed. Let's jump into that 3-man attacking midfield with the wingers. Right wing was unanimous. It was Domenico Berardi. I didn't have to bother to go through that too intensively. Left wing was also unanimous. Rafael Leao. I didn't have to go through that too intensively. So that saved a lot of time. So let's go to the 10 position, the attacking midfielder for this setup. It came down to a couple of players. It was actually relatively close between Hakan Çalhanoğlu and Lorenzo Pellegrini, both very good players, both very good seasons. But Ricky, Hakan Çalhanoğlu is the 10 in our 4-2-3-1. Very deserving, made the switch from Milan and was had a task on his hands replacing Christian Eriksen in that role. Great mix of scoring and creating. I think really an impressive season for him, his first go around with the Nerazzurri. So I'll let you take the lead on Çalhanoğlu.
I told some Milan fans, I'm like, maybe he just needs a new environment, new setup, different role, different coach. Maybe that was the reason why. But yeah, he's stepped up. I was one of the people that was a bit skeptical about him coming in, just off the base of what some Milan fans had said. But he actually exceeded my expectations. He stepped up with some important goals, especially the one against Juve and the second time we played them earlier in the season. He's also come up with some really good assists, as well as some games, as well as even fitting into the Regista role when Brozovic isn't there. So this season he's done pretty good, and I hope to see what he does next season.
Cliffy, Domenico Berardi, just the basically the man there at Sassuolo. Double digits goals and assists on the season. A lot of people need a right-sided attacker, Milan in particular. Thoughts on his season with Sassuolo?
Fantastic. He's a very consistent player, always very, very consistent, does his job, and I feel like doesn't really he's been a little bit late to get the move that I think he should have been taking probably 3 seasons ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think this season, Milan should and will go in on him and get him as their right winger. There'll be
Please.
What?
Please.
I think him and Leao would be a great tandem. Nice juxtaposing types of players. One really pacey, and one that's very good creatively and is just very agile. I also think Leao, obviously, was unanimous left wing. I don't know about Hakan at Cam, only because I think Pellegrini was such a beast, and I think he carried that Roma team. That's why I would personally give it to Pellegrini, but I could see why people picked Hakan because he had a phenomenal season as well.
I'm slightly I'm with the edge here for Çalhanoğlu over Pellegrini and just Rafa. Thoughts on the three here that are going to provide the service to our striker?
Yeah, I'm with it. Hakan was one of the best pickups for Inter, if you ask me. I wasn't. This is why I considered them favorites all year long. Is that they lost all the players they lost, and then Conte walked away, and I really feel like they replaced those players well. Well enough for me to consider them favorites all season. And it came down to the last day, so I wasn't too far off the mark there. But Çalhanoğlu really did a lot of great for Inter this season, and I believe he deserves to be there. Berardi, of course. I mean, Berardi had such a phenomenal season. What was it? 15 goals, 15 assists, or something like that. And he's going to really fit into Napoli's plans next season really well. Just so you guys know. As a matter of fact, he's not, because Sassuolo don't like to transfer to Napoli. So congratulations, Frank. He's going to Milan. But I would love to see this translated onto the national team. because he needs to really step up on the national team on the right wing. But Berardi really did have such a fantastic season, and Rafael, I mean, there's nothing much else to say about Rafael. He's, to me, and maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves, MVP of the season. So
He was unstoppable.
Just unstoppable. And again, everybody on Milan played so much better than they played last season, and but I think the key was so did the manager.
Yeah.
He just did so much. Like, he also improved with the squad. So by him managing a lot better, Pioli, all the players, it translated on the pitch really well. And I think that's a big reason Milan won the Scudetto. Leao is incredible, absolutely incredible. And I would love to see him stick around for a while. It would be great.
Let's pay him. Please pay him. That's all I've got to say. And Cliff, to your point, Berardi already kind of deals with that dynamic at Sassuolo with Hamed Traore playing on the left-hand side. And Hamed Traore is a guy we better, people, if they don't know, they better know quick, because he had himself a season. There wouldn't be too much transition. You look at the guy that probably plays in the 10 role. Sassuolo kind of got away from that. They kind of went with a striker and a support striker with Raspadori and Scamacca. Not necessarily what Milan's going to do. So, yeah, we'll see, what goes on. But I think these three are the right ones. I get the shout for Pellegrini, but I think Çalhanoğlu is just ahead of him. Leo and Berardi are slam dunks for me, in the wing positions here. So, let's finish this up with the striker. The way things tabulated, it was looking like 4 strikers were in position, and when we've done the Serie A sit-down team of the season in 6 seasons, or in the previous 5 seasons, we have never left off the Capocannonieri. They've always made the team of the season, and we were getting dangerously close to the Capocannonieri getting left off this year. But Ciro Immobile is in by 2 points over Dusan Vlahovic as our striker in this setup, just edging out Vlahovic. The others that were in contention, Lautaro Martinez, obviously, with the important goals that he scored for Inter, and Victor Osimhen, despite the injuries, the rate with which he scored when he was fit with Napoli certainly merited some attention amongst the panel. But Ciro Immobile, our striker in the 4-2-3-1 in our team of the season. Cliff, did we get it right?
No, we did not get it right. And
I know you were going to say that.
I will tell you why. Obviously, by the stats, by the numbers, it's Immobile. But I think if you look at just the player, I think Vlahovic is like the perfect striker. And I'm not just saying that because he's on Juve. Even at Fiorentina, I was telling everybody, he's a perfect striker. He can hold up play. He can pass well. He can finish some amazing goals. He's he's not the paciest player. Like Osimhen's just a freak, a physical freak, pacey, big. Maybe needs a little bit more strength to him, but I think Vlahovic is just all around the best striker in the league. That's just my opinion, though. I think a lot of people have different takes on what they think of the right and prototypical striker should be. That's just my opinion for Vlahovic.
Ricky, does it get to? Are there times where we should say quantity is quantity is great? We love to see it, but sometimes you got to look at the quality of goals in terms of making the argument for Lautaro Martinez. In terms of making the argument for Dusan Vlahovic, with the majority of his goals coming on a Fiorentina team that most didn't fancy compared to the traditional top 6, but scoring all of those goals and then scoring some, getting off to a good start and scoring some important goals for Juve, in his first half season there. Should it be said that sometimes you have to, sacrifice the leading scorer for the guy who scored the ones that counted a little bit more?
Yeah. The ones that count more versus the guy that can just do it all the time. But I would argue that Ciro Immobile deserves it because he's been consistent season after season after season with Lazio. Whereas Lautaro, even this season amongst Inter fans, we were very divided. Some calling more or less that maybe he should have just been sold. The fact he wasn't the main number 9 and it happened to go to Dzeko. And even then, too, with Lautaro, he'll score the most random, bizarre angle goal, and then he'll miss like an easy chance.
Rafa, would this have been the season where we should have looked at quality instead of looking at the leading scorer for this spot?
I mean, I think you need to do that every season. But I'm gonna go with Immobile too, because like Cliff said, consistency is pretty important to when you value what a striker does. I mean, it's not Immobile's fault that around him at Lazio things are not clicking, no matter who the manager is, what players are servicing him or whatever. A lot of it might be he's got a few hat tricks, a lot of it are a lot of penalties, what have you. The important thing is that it happens every year where he's up there for Capocannoniere or is Capocannoniere. So and it doesn't matter how crappy he is on the national team. In Lazio for Serie A, he scores the goals, man. He gets the job done.
Agreed.
So yes, there is something to say about the important goals, the goals that the play, because a striker is supposed to score goals, but that's not their only job too. A forward is also linking play up, or holding the ball up, or becoming a distraction for the wingers, or drawing players away from certain other players to give them open space. And I think Victor Osimhen does that really well. I think because of his injuries and his inability to have seen a full season at Napoli yet, I think he's almost there. So, I could say I'm really pissed that there's no Napoli player on this 11, but at the same time, Osimhen for me is like right there. But Osimhen, Vlahovic, Lautaro, and Simeone, in order, the players that I picked underneath Ciro Immobile, for me, all had dips in their form in this season. And again, whether it's injury or what have you, we talked about the Osimhen injury. Vlahovic for me, and I'm sorry, Cliff, when he got to Juve, he scored on his debut. He scored another goal, maybe. He scored a minute one in Champions League, but he did not light Serie A up with Juve like everybody thought he would on Fiorentina. He was at 17 with Fiorentina and then only 7 with Juve in the league. After that, and it just didn't look like it was working. Was it because Chiesa? Was it because of whatever the reason is? I mean, they got to 4th, and that's fine. But for me, I thought like it's over. These guys are coming back to win the Scudetto, and it didn't happen. So
Right.
that's why I put him under Osimhen. Lautaro went really cold for a long time. If he was on even just a little bit, he was like half better than what he was during that time, Inter might be the champions. And then Simeone, we all saw the start he got off to, and then he disappeared out of nowhere, So, yes and no. Immobile is consistent, man. The guy scores in almost every game. Every week he's on the score sheet, or he's doing something to get them there. So hats off to Immobile. He deserves it.
All right. So that is our team of the season. So, and based on the conversation, the substitutes bench would be Sami Handanovic, Kalidou Koulibaly, Milan Skriniar, Fabian Ruiz, Davide Calabria, Ivan Perisic, Lorenzo Pellegrini, Dusan Vlahovic, and Lautaro Martinez. So 10-man bench. You almost can build a second team with that group. So, and it can compete with what we picked. So once again, our team of the season: goalkeeper Mike Maignan of Milan, Denzel Dumfries of Inter, Fikayo Tomori of Milan, Bremer of Torino, Teo Hernandez of Milan, Sandro Tonali of Milan, Marcelo Brozovic of Inter, Domenico Berardi of Sassuolo, Hakan Çalhanoğlu of Inter, Rafael Leao of Milan, Ciro Immobile of Lazio. They will be managed by our manager of the season, a unanimous vote, Stefano Pioli. Again, what can we say? The ability to manage, dealt with injuries at the center back position, navigated through some things, had to deal with a Milan that was struggling to score goals, found the solution to pair Tomori with Kalulu and have Kalulu deputize as a center back as one of the master strokes that he had. the in-game management, the ability to strike the chord with great substitutions, and help Milan get into position to grind out wins to win the Scudetto, makes him manager of the season. Everybody but me had Simone Inzaghi second. And then everybody but me had Italiano third. I had flip-flopped. I had Italiano second and Inzaghi third. So that's where that is. And I think we've said enough superlatives about Stefano Pioli. Let's move on to goal of the season. This one, maybe recency bias, but man, it's really hard to get away from Teo Hernandez's box-to-box goal against Atalanta, as a goal of the season. There was a shout for Juan Cuadrado's goal against Roma. I'll give you 3 guesses who put that in. So we had the Domenico Berardi bicycle kick goal. Come on.
Forgot about that one.
As a choice. Pellegrini's goal, his free kick against Juve. There was a Brecalo goal. There was a Mertens goal. All of these were wonderful goals, but I think that Teo's goal is that maybe a goal of the season, Ricky, that might that might be the signature play for Milan. In terms of winning the Scudetto. Your thoughts?
And I saw that, I'm like, yeah, these guys are probably going to run away with it. There's no stopping them, especially if their left back's able just to cut through a defense like that. There's nothing stopping these guys.
Yep, agreed. Moving on to our player of the season, and this was actually close. It was decided by 1 point. But we are in consensus with seemingly everybody else in our Serie A sit-down player of the season. Rafael Leao of Milan is the player of the season by 1 point over his teammate Mike Maignan. Would have been the first time we had a goalkeeper win player of the season. So we've spoken enough superlatives about Leao, but are we surprised, Cliff, that it got that close between Leao and Maignan?
Am I surprised at that? I guess not really, because after Leao, I think Magnan's the obvious second. So I guess I'm not really surprised it's that close, because Leao was by far better than everybody else.
Perisic got a lot of steam here, Ricky, in the voting. And I think that if Inter if Inter was able to win this title, we'd be talking about Ivan Perisic as the player of the season. This is a guy we've hardly talked about on this podcast, and I think some of it was, well, do you put him at left back? Do you put him at left wing? Well, if you do, well, Teo and Rafael Leao are there. So what do you do with this guy? So he's on the bench of the team of the season, but this could have flipped pretty quick if Inter would have won this title. You would have had to have figured out how to jam Ivan Perisic in team of the season, and probably would have ended up being MVP.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's the Robert Gosens of the podcast, his team of the year, basically just sitting on the bench.
Absolutely. Rafa, in any of those, manager, goal, MVP, team of the season, anybody else that you think we might have that might have been snubbed in this process? Obviously, what we did was a collaboration of 5 very, very intelligent minds when it comes to Calcio. But anyone else that we didn't mention that maybe deserves a shout?
As far as manager goes, I would really like to shout Simone Inzaghi. Again, just for making the team that seemed to have been like disassembled overnight almost. Fight for Scudetto on the last day, win Coppa Italia. They won Supercoppa. It's not like they walked away empty-handed like our friend above us here for the first time in a long time.
Come on, we were supposed to play nice.
No, we're playing
nice, and now he's
I said he's my friend. I did say he's my friend. He said
okay.
I said our friend, and I gave a thumbs up.
Okay,
I'll take it.
But yeah, no. You got to give it to him. You got to give it to him. Because here's another thing. Milan, the last 5 matches of the season, I didn't think they'd win 2 of those matches, and they won all 5. And in that time frame, Taylor Hernandez scores the goal of the season.
Mhm.
You can't deny what Milan did, but if it wasn't for that, Simone Inzaghi is manager of the season. You take an Inter who won the Scudetto, who's depleted now, from their best striker, one of their best left backs they've seen, and their star manager, and they replaced them. Like I said, they replaced them really well, but then they needed a captain to steady the ship, and he came in and he did a really fabulous job doing it. I know they blew the lead, we talked about. Ricky said that there were 7 points before the Milan game, but at the same time they got back to it. They handled themselves well, and I think he deserves a lot of praise for this season. As far as a goal that we overlooked, I think that Davide Faraone goal to make it 3-2 against Roma for me was one of. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember this goal. Look it up, please. It was just the side, the outside foot of his right foot volley that screamed and hit the inside of the crossbar and went in to make it 3-2 for Verona, and they beat Roma. It was just amazing. And a sentimental one for me is the Fabian goal against Lazio at the Olimpico, 94th minute to have Napoli back in first place for a couple weeks was just the composure that he showed. It was everything about that was, to Insigne leaving it off for him, which I didn't think was going to happen. I thought he was going to do his famous Tira Giro and screw it up, but he left it off for him and he just took that shot and scored it. That was, for me, moment of the season for me personally. And I think that goal, I rated it 5th of 5, but maybe just because of the situation that we were in at the time.
Sure.
Took the lead, lost the lead late, and then got that goal. And for me, that was one of the best goals of the season. But Teo Hernandez with a Maradona Messi goal. I mean, can you believe that? That was just, and he's a left back. France is going to be scary in this World Cup, guys. I just remembered he's French. Like, that's insane.
Yeah. It's bonkers. I mean, just crazy. I mean, and when you think about it, when you see, I mean, it draws comparisons to George Weah's goal all those years ago, but George Weah was a striker. I mean, So, I mean, excellent stuff, guys. We went wall to wall and knocked it out of the park here with this review. I couldn't thank the 3 of you enough for being here. So let's put a bow on this season of Serie A Sit Down. And give our esteemed panelists a chance to give some shameless plugs here, starting with the team that finished 4th, Juventus and Cliff.
Thank you for that lovely reminder. You can find me at Cliff Asmio at Twitter. You can find our team, All Juvecast, on Twitter and on YouTube and on Instagram. And then you can also find Stoppage Time is the show that I run. We do that usually on Mondays or Tuesdays we record. You can find that on YouTube, Stoppage Time by AJC. Thank you, guys.
Yep. Cliff, I know that you had you kind of had a little bit of a time constraint. You stayed late with us anyway. I definitely appreciate you taking the time. Thank you for joining us, man. And your 3rd cap is going to come sometime when we get back, when we reconvene for the new season. So
awesome. Thank you.
All right. Great having you. On to 3rd place and Napoli and Rafa. Plug away, my friend.
Yes, thank you. You guys can find me on Twitter at RafaNapoli83. As Cliff might know, a lot of I answer to everything. You name it, I answer. But I am on the Napoli Rant. You can find that on Twitter at Napoli Rant and on YouTube as well at the Napoli Rant. We're live every Monday night at around 9:30. I also am head of the Far From Vesuvius podcast network, and on that you can find the audio to our live later on. And also I produce in the behind the scenes a new show called In the Shadow of Vesuvio with my buddy, the formerly known as Frank Psychic. He's now Henry Bell, and Michele Borelli, who is living in Naples. So we get a on the ground perspective of Napoli from a guy who is in Naples and speaks perfect English, which is crazy. But you can find that at Far From Vesuvius as well. And I just want to say thank you, Frank, for letting me on here again. It's always nice to talk to my birthday mate, you know?
my long lost birthday twin. And as far as caps go for you, I think you're approaching double digits, and I think double digits will
Possibly.
happen next season. So I've got no doubts about that. And finally, Ricky, pushing my boys all the way to the finish.
Oh, don't worry, we'll be back next season.
Yes, you will.
Love
Yes,
it.
you will. I got no
Love
doubts.
it.
Plug away, man.
You can find me on Twitter at buzz_QS and here on YouTube at Ricky Buzz.
Excellent. I am at FTC_21. My co-host Richard Carmen is at R_KHARMAN at Serie A Sit Down on Twitter, Instagram. You can also check us out on Facebook. We have our own channel on Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. We are on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever there's podcasts. There is Serie A Sit Down. We must be popular because we got our first ever Tinder bot in the chat. So, I don't know what to make of that. I have no use for it, so I just blocked it. So sorry if anybody in the chat wanted to click on that. We apologize. We will not be doing Who Won Calcio Twitter. It's not me. That doesn't mean that it's dead. We just ran out of time. We will reconvene. Richard and I will come up with a way to pick a winner from this week, and then also have a best of the season Who Won Calcio Twitter here at some point. So hang in there on that. Richard will have a special podcast that he will break down the details of next week with a guest. So I will check out Serie A Sit Down on Twitter for him to release that information. That's that. Chat was awesome, except for the Tinder bot. As always. And I want to take this, as I do at the end of every season, to thank the listeners. If you're not listening, Richard and I are not going to do this. So you keep listening. So we're going to keep going. So, so thank you all for being a part of what's been now completing our 6th season of Serie A Sit Down, and we're excited to get ramped up here for season 7. But at the same time, we're also looking forward to taking a little break too. So it's been a fantastic season. Thank you to the 3 of you for being on tonight. Thank you to all of the guests we've had throughout the season. Everybody in the chat, everybody who has been listening. For Cliff, Rafa, Ricky, Richard, I'm Frank. As always, make sure you're telling your paisans about us. Ciao.